Giving it the beans, ladies and gentlemen. We are merging onto the freeway in a 2023 Kia Forte LXS. For all intents and purposes, this is the base model Kia Forte. Technically, the LX is the base model. It's $500 cheaper than this one, and you will be missing out on 16-inch alloy wheels, fold-down back seats, and soft feel door trim. So for the extra $500, the LXS is probably worth it, and more so than that, this is the one that you're much more likely to find sitting on a dealer lot available to buy. So how does this car drive? Well, short answer is it drives pretty well. The ride is relatively smooth. The handling is decent, but you don't have great road feel, but it feels very middle of the road. If you're looking for the outright sportiest compact car, at least this one isn't it. I have not driven the Kia Forte with the turbo engine. I have a feeling that would definitely feel sportier than this base model. But just strictly as far as the base model goes, I think a Honda Civic or a Nissan Sentra handles a little better. I think a Subaru Impreza or a Toyota Corolla, probably, especially the Impreza, but probably the Corolla, have a little bit smoother of a ride. But there's nothing wrong with this Forte. It's definitely kind of a middle of the road driving experience, so to speak. It's not the best and it's not the worst. I think that overall this car does present a very good value in its class based on the fact that the base MSRP for this LXS model is $19,990, and for that you get some nice features. You get the wireless Apple CarPlay, you get pretty good gas mileage for the class, you get things like, you know, forward collision alert, lane departure warning, the sort of standard emergency braking safety features. You don't get adaptive cruise, you don't get blind spot monitors. These are things that are available if you move a little bit up on the Forte food chain. But in general, like I said, I think that this car does present a good value, and it is a nice enough car to drive. I often think to myself, today we're going to do a pure freeway test drive and it's going to be great. And it rarely is because, well, it's the freeway and we hit traffic. But we're doing 45 miles an hour, so who am I to complain? I also like the way this car looks. I think it's a pretty nice looking car. The engine's horsepower and torque ratings are pretty low, in my opinion. I mean, I guess they're comparable to the competitors, but it's definitely on the low end of what's possible out of a 2-liter gasoline engine in this day and age. But with that being said, the car doesn't feel sluggish. The performance is totally fine and acceptable. And the engine is relatively refined, and it is pretty efficient as well. I did a real-world fuel economy test on the car last night, and that video will be up probably a few days after I post this test drive video, because that's typically how I do it. That's 60 miles an hour on, a decent freeway. It's not horrible, but it's not the quietest road in the world. And we're down to 50, and we're making a freeway transition. It's almost 2:30 in the afternoon, so this is right around the time you feel traffic building up. And if you don't live in an area with heavy traffic on freeways, you start to feel this tension. Like every other driver and all these other cars knows, all right, traffic is gonna start building. If I'm gonna get home with any kind of reasonable time frame here, we all need to be careful. Nobody screw up. But according to my Apple CarPlay, it hasn't gotten that bad yet. So we'll see if it's correct. But yeah, I don't mind driving this car, but I don't look forward to it. It's definitely not the best driving car in the class. But then again, it's not the worst either. You know, this car to me is just straight down the middle. Yeah, the acceleration's decent. What the hell? Yeah, it's actually good. The acceleration in this car is better than the horsepower and torque numbers would suggest that it is. So you do have good power. The transmission, what does Kia call this? The intelligent variable transmission. It's a CVT, but they gave it a little bit of a fancier name. But they did a very good job in the software of the transmission. They clearly don't want anybody to know this is a CVT, because they came up with some marketing mumbo jumbo name to get around that fact. And they have artificial shift points programmed into the transmission's logic, so it definitely feels like a conventional automatic. And when I first drove this car for the first time yesterday, and I was kind of getting the feel for it, I was really like, is that a regular torque converter automatic or is it a CVT? Like, I know what I'm feeling for, and I was paying attention to it, and I couldn't really tell. I had to look it up later. So the transmission's fine. I mean, personally, I like CVTs, and I like it when they do their CVT motorboating thing. I mean, hey, who doesn't like motorboating? But enough people on the internet complain about it and say they hate CVTs that automakers have been putting these sort of artificial shift patterns into them with the computer software. I kind of wish that you could put it into a different modes, you know, like a sport mode if you want the fake automatic shifts, or just like a regular smooth mode if you just want it to act purely like a CVT, because smooth mode would be my preference. I like it when the CVT is allowed to do its business the way it's supposed to, but some people don't, and I understand that. But then again, it's all just computer code at this point, so they could definitely give us the option of different modes. That's about 75 miles per hour there. Car feels pretty solid. This one has just under 2,000 miles on it right now. A couple of maybe one very minor little rattle somewhere in the cabin, which does happen with some new cars. And it doesn't tell me that there's necessarily anything wrong with this car, but it's just something that I will note about this particular example. But overall, the car does feel solid. Kia and Hyundai, their build quality has really come up a lot in the last 15 years. And they're doing big things in the automotive world, and I've liked a lot of their work. This is, if I just think about the Hyundai and Kia products that I've driven in the last year or so, this is not the nicest one, but it is the cheapest one. And I think that where it is for its price point, it does what it needs to do, and it's a totally viable option for somebody who's looking for an inexpensive car that's a good value, because that's exactly what this thing is. This car is not very expensive. $19,990 base MSRP, and it is a good value. You get good equipment. It's a nice looking car. It feels like it's well made, and it's worth the money you pay for it. It's not, I wouldn't say this is an exceptional value. It's not above and beyond everything else, but it's very competitive and it's worth considering. And the way things are in this day and age, if you're out there looking for a car, because I'm filming this in, October of 2022, and at this point in the market, there is still a shortage of vehicles. I feel like that's starting to go away, but it's only one or two factory slowdowns or supply kinks away from being here for much longer. So I think right now, you have to be flexible as a consumer with whatever vehicle it is that you're trying to buy. So maybe you were thinking Honda Civic. I'm gonna go buy a Honda Civic. They don't have any Honda Civics, or there's so few of them that the dealer has a $5,000 markup on it, and I don't want to pay a $5,000 markup. Fair enough. You know, I'm just total random example there. But I went down the road and I found this Kia Forte, and they've got one in stock, and it's only $1,000 over window, or they'll sell it to me for sticker as long as I pay for the door edge guards or whatever jiggity jack thing they've got going on. Should I buy a Kia Forte? You know, maybe. I mean, if you can find one and it's a reasonable price on it. Is a Honda Civic a nicer car? Yeah, it probably is a little bit nicer, but if you can get a Kia for a few $1,000s less, that's fair, and it's a good option, you know. If they were both the same amount of money, I would take the Civic. But if the Kia is less expensive, which based on the MSRP, as far as the equal equipment, it is, then the Kia is, you know, definitely a worthwhile contender. And maybe you change your plan, you know, and you get one of these at a reasonable price, drive it for a few years, and then hopefully at some point things go back to semi-normal or kind of how it was in the before times, and then you say, okay, maybe it's time to trade that thing in and get what I really want, you know? A lot of compromise in the last couple of years, and I was born in the United States, I am in the United States, I know people in other countries watch my content, but it's primarily for an American audience, and Americans are not very good at compromise, and we're getting worse at it, I feel. But sometimes compromise is not a bad thing. Yeah, this is a nice car to drive. You know, like I said earlier, excitement's not there, but, well, thinks I'm gonna hit this F-150. Got a collision notification there. Power's not bad. Engine's relatively refined. It's a good car. I don't know, if you're looking for a compact car and you're on a budget, I highly recommend this. I would be interested to drive a turbo version. I've never driven, this is just the regular 2.0 engine with 147 horsepower. They make it with a 1.6 liter turbo that has 201, and you get different transmissions with that. You can either have a 7-speed dual clutch automatic, or you can have a stick shift, a 6-speed manual with the turbo. I would like to drive one of those and feel the difference, see if they kind of firmed up the suspension and the steering a little bit, because if they did that, then you'd probably be looking at a pretty nice car to drive. But, you know, as this is, it's comfortable, it's fine, it's a good commuter car, it's inoffensive, and it's a good value. So that's my conclusion on the freeway test drive of the Kia Forte. Nice car. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you liked my video, please like it, subscribe to the channel, etc., etc. And have yourself a fantastic day. Bye-bye.